Hey guys, and welcome to an update on Diego's tank. I did think about doing this all in one video where Diego moves in and this is all before that, but I am thinking of documenting how Diego gets on in his new tank over a period of a week, and so I think that'd be best as a video on its own. So I thought today I'd give you an update on any changes I've made, any additions to the tank, basically what has been going on in my Leopard Gecko Bioactive tank. Also, I am doing a voiceover today because Diego's new tank is in the room next to the living room, and as you can imagine, it's a full house at the moment, and I get super embarrassed if I think people can hear me filming. So I am doing a voiceover today. Anyway, what has changed in this tank? Well, quite soon after letting Diego explore the tank, I decided to saw another hole in the side of the hide. As we saw, Diego particularly liked this side of the hide, but it seemed he was a little confused on how to get out of it, so I figured I'd add in an extra hole. The next thing I did was start to add the cleanup crew in. So a lot of you guys actually told me that the giant orange isopods are great for tanks like this, and I have tons of them, they keep breeding. But I know Diego will usually eat anything that moves. For example, one morning I just saw him launch across the tank, and when I went to see what he launched at, basically a mealworm must have stayed in his tank, pupated, turned into a beetle, hatched out, started to walk across his tank, and he ate it. So he pretty much goes for anything that moves, and that's why I have started off with Springtails. Now at first I was taking them from my Chihuahua's tank and adding them in. They accumulate in like hundreds in milk lids, so I was just flicking them in. But they kept disappearing. So I bit the bullet and I went and actually bought some. Well, I ordered some online and I put the entire tub in. And thankfully we do actually still see them about. They're mainly around this soil, the soil that they came in, so I am a little reluctant to mix it in with the earth mix arid. I'm worried if I do that they might pop their clogs, but there is a chance that they're living deep down in the earth mix arid where it's slightly more damp, or even under this big piece of slate. But I'm really curious to see how they actually cope with the waste and whether or not I will have to add in isopods. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Substrate. I feel like it has gone down a bit. I think where the Substrate sort of dries out from when you first put it in, it does shrink down a little bit, so it looks a little more shallow than when I first added it. But you may notice the top layer looks quite dry, but I've been actually getting into the routine of misting down the tank, which feels horribly unnatural, misting down a Leopard Gecko tank, but it has to be done. With Earth Mix Arid, if you mist it, it will create a layer on top that's dry, but down below it's sort of nice and hydrated. It's not soggy and wet to touch, but it feels like fresh, like hydrated. I'm really avoiding trying to say the word moist because I hate it, but I think basically the thought behind this is in the wild, the layers below the topsoil would be more like damp, so if the gecko needed that extra bit of humidity to successfully shed, they'll dig down a bit to the more hydrated levels. Anyway, I found that it's best to lightly mist the soil and then attempt to water the plants, as the water does sit on top for a little bit, and if you directly water something too much, like the water just runs away. So I found that it's best to mist everything, then go back to those plants and add a little more water. I know someone also suggested syringe watering the plants too, so that is maybe another good option you could try. Maybe I'll try it in the future too. But basically, when you first water it, the tank looks absolutely soaked. However, I have been monitoring the humidity when I do this, and it always stays below 40%, and I think that's mainly because of how well ventilated this tank is. Now, in terms of how the plants are doing, well, the grass is looking half dead, half alive, but Carrick's grass kind of looks that way anyway. Like, it started off like this when I planted it in, and now it looks like this. Now, some strands have curled, and that happened pretty much in the first few days of planting. Maybe they just didn't get enough water early on. I'm debating whether to chop those bits off or whether they uncurl when they're hydrated. I'm not sure. They may be dead. I might have to chop those bits off. But the grass is technically still alive, so it's all good. And the succulent actually seems to be doing pretty good. So maybe I'll add a few more in the future. Maybe I'll even add in air plants. So this can definitely change as we go. So far the grass is okay. This bit in the corner keeps getting trapped in the door, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. Maybe I will have to change that to a succulent. The latest thing I did to the tank was turn on the deep heat projector. Most of the time the tank has been room temperature, as I wanted the plants to have the best chance to settle into this tank. However, the time has come to move Diego in, and so I put the heater on. I'm going to probably leave it on for a week before I move him in, because I'm using such thick pieces of slate, which is great, but they need time to heat up. Because, like, say we had a power cut, even if it's just for an hour or something, the rocks are going to retain that heat quite well, so he probably won't even notice that his heater's gone off, but they do need time to heat up. Now, I must also admit, I am a little reluctant to move Diego in. It has been a while since I initially set up this tank. It will basically be the first time in Diego's life he hasn't lived in my room, and I'm gonna like just miss seeing his little face pop up at the window every night, and I do wonder how it's going to affect the rest of the geckos. Obviously Diego's the only male leopard gecko in the room. Like, are the females going to change in behaviour? Are the pheromones going to drop in this room? Who knows? But they will sort of meet again when we move out and have a reptile room. I was putting it off a little bit because before lockdown we'd had our offer approved on a house. It looked like in a few months we'd be moving, and we'd just as well build the reptile room and move Diego in his new tank when we're in the new house. But obviously everything has changed, everything's on hold, and so I guess I just have to bite the bullet and move him in soon. So it's bittersweet. I can't wait to see him in his new home, but it's going to be weird not having him in my room. But yeah, I thought I would update you guys so you know what's going on. The heater has now been on for a couple of days, and by the time this video goes up, Diego would have probably moved in, so maybe that will be the next video. We'll see. Actually, no, because I need to document it for a week. We'll see. Just make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. If you don't know already, all of this stuff, the tank, the fake rocks, all of that, from Custom Reptile Habitats, I'll leave their links below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and goodbye.